Hello and welcome to In the Weeds. We're recording live from the Picky Weeds Esoteric Occult Boutique, located just south of Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, in beautiful South Abington Township. Picky Weeds is the largest and most diverse boutique of its kind in Northeast Pennsylvania, with an increasingly wide variety of items for many traditions.
In addition to items for sale, Picky Weeds hosts a wide variety of classes, events, and community-driven gatherings throughout the year. Picky Weeds is located at 105 Layton Road, South Abington Township, PA. Open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. More information can be found at www.pickyweeds.com. That's PICKEYWEEDZ.com, or on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. In the Weeds is the official podcast for Picky Weeds, where we strive to bring the community together with topics of interest, guest speakers, and informative discussions to benefit the entire community.
If you'd like to be a guest speaker, either live or remote call-in, please visit www.pickyweeds.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, find In the Weeds podcast guest application, click it, copy and paste the text into an email with your contact information, and send it to us at pickyweeds@gmail.com.
Now let's get in the
weeds.
weeds. Hey guys, welcome back. It is episode 18 of season 2. And we are here with Christopher Bilardi. Some of you guys already know him. A lot of you have read The Red Church about the Pennsylvania practice of correct me on my speech, brasherie? Brauerei. Okay, I fucking suck at that. But today I think he's here to talk about a little bit more than that. We're going to be discussing a new book he's writing about Sybil Leek. So Christopher, how the hell did you get into this life, and what made you become an author?
This life in particular?
Was it your choice, really?
No.
Because I'm not sure it was mine either.
No, they didn't give me a choice. They just said, go.
Go. Flicked you like a gnat out into the universe, yes.
Well, the next time I'm really putting my foot down.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to remember all this crap they pulled. Oh, my God. Oh.
So do you mean how did I start in anything?
In magic and ceremonialism. And,
oh, goodness. That was when I was 12.
Yeah.
And I had an interest in just about everything. One of the people who was formative for me was Sybil Leek, and her complete book of witchcraft I found it really compelling, but at the same time I found Anton Szandor LaVey equally And I remember I had to hide everything from my mother.
Oh, yeah.
And she blessed my room with holy oil and said, I never want to see this crap in my house ever again.
Yeah. Evangelical person over here. Yeah, I get that totally.
Roman Catholic.
Yeah, they're just as bad. Maybe it's crazy. I don't know.
They have different gang signs.
Yes, they do. That's good. Different gang signs. Okay. No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh no. As far as Pennsylvania Dutch Brauerei powwow, however you want to say it, well, I always had an interest in the plain people, which is only like a small amount of the Pennsylvania Germans. The rest are what they call church people. Originally, the plain people came over for religious freedom because they were all Anabaptists and they were severely persecuted in Germany. Then along came the others, the church people, being the Lutherans, the Reformed, and they came more to make money.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme.
Oh, yeah. And so I found them fascinating. And one of the things that compelled me to them was something about my own family. My family had a tradition of, well, what we would call witchcraft today, but back then you'd get slapped sideways if you ever called somebody a witch.
Yeah, it was more of a folk tradition.
Right,
yeah.
And it was on both sides of my family. And I was always jealous of those who had it passed down to them. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered Pennsylvania German stuff that I later found out wasn't too far away.
Yeah.
So it was because of the Italian stuff that didn't get down to me because one of my elder cousins wanted nothing to do with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah. They got scared off by their... And that's what bugs me, I think, about the control of religion, is all the culture that gets lost, especially like the ancient cultures and all the ancient practices. And it gets brainwashed out of them, or feared out of them, I'll say, because the religion of the oppressor comes in and it adapts certain parts. I won't say adapts, it appropriates certain parts of those cultural practices to make itself look friendly to the people. And then it brainwashes them into this mind meld for the Christian religion or whatever dominant religion it is in the area. And it sort of whitewashes everything away and buries it underground. And people kind of lose contact with who they are. I think they lose that connection with their actual ancestors and themselves. And I think that's why so many of us feel fucking lost. And we're floundering out here, and we're kind of in the worst way possible. I think we're taking it out on each other, and we're kind of lashing out at everybody else. And you're lashing out on the basis of race or politics or religion. And the truth is, it's been done to every single culture that sits at this table in this country. You know, and I think that's kind of a huge, sad loss. And we've done a lot of trying to reconstruct, and I think that's done a lot of damage too. So with you having an oral tradition passed down, you know, I think we need to kind of cling to that and then look to that as a guide for investigating the other religions of the world. I know a lot of people do this, but a lot of people just piecemeal it because, oh my God, that sounds fascinating. Let's do that. Let's add that to our practice. You know, and it does a lot of destruction because then you don't know where it came from. And it's not like they mean to appropriate, but they're appropriating without realizing it because they're saying it's their own when they have no idea where in history or where in what culture that practice came from. So I think this Pennsylvania Dutch is probably one of the purest ones that we have because it is still so well practiced by so many people, especially in this part of the world. I thought that was fascinating.
Well, I have a few things to say just about folk magic in general. I know that there are some people out there. Well, let me just start with my family. On my mother's side, it was practiced by my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother. And my grandmother actually didn't do anything. And on my father's side, my grandmother, who I never met, she died the year before I was born. And she was originally Roman Catholic. She left Italy because the family wanted to put her in a convent. And when she was on her second marriage, let me think. Okay, she took all of her children to a Pentecostal church because there wasn't a Roman Catholic church that was close by. So all of my family on my father's side are Protestant, which is strange. People hear Italian, they doesn't.
Yeah, that does not compute.
You know, I as far as appropriation goes, I found a group called Catholic Witches, and I've seen, well, because of my family background and what they did. First of all, a witch is a witch is a witch.
Yeah.
And
absolutely,
whatever is laid on top of it, whether from the Stone Age, as they so-called, and then on top of that, layers and layers until you get to Roman religion, and then there's something else on top of that, which was Catholicism. Well, then that became the religion to practice in, and the people who are practicing in Catholicism, this folk magic or witchcraft, whatever you wish to call it, they were quite sincere in their Catholicism. And when I see something like Catholic witches, what they call themselves, they're just not doing it the way I've always known it to be done.
Yeah.
So they'll call Mary a goddess and all this other stuff, and I know it's not like that.
Yeah.
So this is where things get screwed up.
It is. It is.
My paternal grandmother, when my grandfather would go into the mines, she would start her morning by a whole line of women coming to her doorstep to have babies, to have ghosts chased away, to get the evil eye taken off of them, and
Love that.
all sorts of things like that. And that's how it was done. It wasn't something that was so totally open, but it was just on the surface that everybody knew.
Yeah, and
The neighbors knew.
And they were
The
accepted.
community knew. Yeah.
It was, they were accepted for that. I mean, they called them something completely different. They didn't call them witches. I think in England, Scotland, Ireland, places like that, they would have been known as cunning person, cunning
That's
man,
right.
cunning woman. So it's same as like if you were a wart cunner, that meant you were an herbalist. That you worked with the herbs, and it depended on what your branch of study was and what your branch of healing arts was, or even divinatory practice, but they weren't seen as witches. I think that's of late inception, actually. That's like something that's more of a recent terminology to call people who would have never considered themselves that.
No, it would have been an insult.
Yeah, because witch means to contort, to bend. That's the old root of the word, and I think that's how they would have seen it. Even though some of us have taken that and made that ours, we realize we're bending reality. We realize we're bending reality and bending energy, and airbender became a huge thing. I don't think those people from the Asian culture would have thought of it like that. They wouldn't have seen it that way. They'd have seen it as moving chi, or ki if you're Japanese. So I think that we conflate a lot of terminology within the movement. I really do.
And I think that's a problem.
Yeah,
because
I do too.
it takes things that are genuinely ethnic and it makes a dog's breakfast out of
Yes,
it.
it's an appropriation.
Yeah.
I mean, because you won't see a single native out there either. And this is from my side of the family, my dad's side of the family, who were natives and practicing natives. They didn't consider themselves witches, and they didn't consider themselves shaman. Shaman was something they probably never even heard of, because that's out of the Russian steppes. That's where that word hails from, the Tungus tribe. So it's the only place in the world that word comes from. But yet everything now, because it's the big it word, everything is shamanism.
Well, I think that too is an issue because that's all you hear. And I think the problem with that is because English has lost some of its terminology for these different things.
Yes, it's a mutt. It's a mutt language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like you said, things just get lost underneath, and there were words for this sort of thing.
Yes.
But shaman, no.
No, never. We were it was medicine. And that person was very rare and very aloof from the tribe, and was kept that way because it was sacred, and because frankly, people were afraid of them for the most part and only went to them out of a deep sense of need.
Mm-hmm.
Their time was not wasted. They were not your mental walk-in-the-door Lucy therapist with the placard outside on the lemonade stand. You didn't approach these people unless you absolutely needed them. And they didn't talk to you unless they absolutely knew you needed it. Otherwise you were shunned and went away somewhat terrified, that bad things were going to befall you because you interrupted the day-to-day sacred business of this healer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to bother these people, whether they're called cunning men, cunning women, white witches, grey witches, black witches.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? Those white, grey, black.
No such thing.
No, but
I
is
know,
something
but that is huge in the vernacular, and I hate that.
I haven't heard that in a while, but
I hear it all the time.
Really, because
Yeah.
I've only ever read about it from the 60s and 70s. Grey,
The Black Brotherhood.
White.
Yeah, the Black Brotherhood. But they still ask us, do you practice black witchcraft? Do you practice white witchcraft? Are you a white witch or are you a black witch? I'm like, pardon my French, what the fuck's the difference? I'm like, oh my God.
It all depends on how much you piss me off.
Yeah, right? That is exactly it. whatever I practice arises out of fucking necessity. Are you okay with that? Yeah.
You know, that's another interesting point. And maybe this will be a bit controversial, but I see a lot of books put out there where you'll have, and I don't mean this by pointing out any one title, but you'll have a spell a day book. And
yes. Isn't that cute?
Well, you know,
lovely.
All of this work was only done out of necessity.
Yes. Yeah.
Not
only
because,
out of necessity. Only.
Not every day. You know, cleaning your space is one thing. Saying, in Orthodox religion, saying your prayers and all that, that other stuff. And even with witchcraft, the revival of witchcraft and neo-paganism, the most devout will even say their prayers and such to get the day started on the right foot.
Like my mantra in the morning. And I didn't do it today, and boy, did I have a pisser of a morning. Oh, I was angry.
I didn't notice.
And then he goes, shut up. Throw something at him, you see him?
You know, it's easier. Mark Stavish and I had this conversation a few times over the years that it's always easier to go through the regular routes to get to something.
Yes.
If you want a job, you don't do a spelling.
No.
Job is here.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
No.
Yeah. It's not logical.
The magic will give you an edge.
Yeah.
But if that's all you're doing every day...
But they're misunderstanding how that edge works in magic. Because the magic is actually building your internal self into something that you actually like. So that when you walk out in the world, that charisma shows. And it magnetizes those other people to you with regard to how you act and how you receive them. So if it heightens your awareness and it heightens your charismatic ability, you're going to draw that kind of person to you. If it makes you morose and morbid and hateful and bitter and closed off, and because that's what they think the dark is, and we're probably the happiest, most light people around.
Absolutely.
Then you're that little goth chick sitting in the bar that everybody wants to pick on because you're just so morbid and it's so much fun to yank your chain and get you going. So that's what you're going to draw. Your magic is all about you, and it's all about your path upward, your progress.
Mm-hmm. And also one sphere of influence. If somebody is just a regular person on the street, one is not going to have the same sphere of influence as if one were born into great wealth.
Right.
And you have to work with the channels you can get to.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And it goes back to what you were saying, the attitude.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But if you'll notice, even in the upper echelons, there's a lot of practitioners, moneyed practitioners. Mm-hmm. And I call them wolves because they come at you with this extreme charisma, and you'll believe and buy anything they're telling you. And they know that from the outset. And the manipulation is very subtle. And actually, if you stand back and look at it, it's not so subtle at all. You look at people like, the story of Bezos, he's like crafted this whole narrative. I was watching this morning, and he's crafted this whole narrative that it started out of a garage. His granddaddy was DARPA. Mm-hmm. His shit didn't start out of a garage at all. There's a whole narrative, but they do that. And it's sort of, if you think about it, what we do with the illusionary arts, when you're crafting this illusion, they're really adept at what we would call in the lower ranks down here, glamour. Mm-hmm. They're really adept at glamour and putting on the show. I noticed that with politicians really early. The hug the babies, kiss the babies, shake the hands, squeeze the palms, mm-hmm. But they come at you like they're one of you and that they just adore you and they want to help you and they just want to pick your pocket. And that's a magical adept. Is very good at that crafted illusion.
Well, the state itself, though, there's no glamour there. They just pick your pocket, and that's all there's to it.
And they don't make any beans about it. But have you noticed lately the trend is They don't care how out there they are with what's actually behind the curtain. There's no longer an Oz hiding behind the curtain. They're in your face now.
The wizard is right out there. They don't care because there's nothing you could do about it, really.
And they know.
It's really brazen of them. The other thing that I was going to say about the sphere of influence and... Oh, goodness.
You had a moment like me.
I'm having a moment, yeah.
I do that constantly. I have lots of moments.
Okay, I'll have the moment back. And so... I hate it when I go empty.
I do too.
Yeah, it'll come back.
But you're supposed to love it. You're a magical practitioner. The whole point is to go empty. Or we just practice. We're just practice. So we're going to use that as a fucking excuse every time we forget our words. And we're just going.
Let's circle back to Sybil Leek and the influence.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I was reading Keepers of the Flame. Interviews with Elders of Traditional Witchcraft in America by Morgana Davies and Aradia Lynch. And I was reading it and I came across Christine Jones.
Yeah.
Who lived in Florida. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2008. And I saw her in here, and that she was one of the last students of Sybil Leek. And I thought, I want to contact her, so I reached out to Theatic. And he gave me her phone number. And I dialed her up, and there she was. And we had a really nice relationship. We never physically met, but we exchanged calls and emails quite frequently. So, for the longest time, she wanted to write a book about her experiences with Sybil Leek. She said that she was her live-in nurse. Some of the things that she wrote were a bit controversial in her book that she finally did write, called Sybil Leek Out of the Shadows, published by Pendrake Publishing. And she admitted that she wasn't much of a writer. And she was in hospital all the time. I forget what the disease she had was, but her limbs would blow up and be as red as lobsters.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So when she was being treated, when she was very ill, she actually wrote this book. And some of her memories of Sybil were good, some were bad. And she really wanted this published badly, so it went to Pendrake. And she was so eager to have it done. She had this misconception, which a lot of people still do, is that authors are rich. And that books make money like that.
You guys are lucky to make $1 on a copy.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's disgusting.
When I want to get some of my own copies of my own book, I have, even though I get a discount, by the time I sell it somewhere else, it's just breaking even, if that. So
and it takes you forever to get them. It kills me, but I've noticed that with all of you guys. It's like you think they would rush you copies because you're the author.
Right. No,
I think we could get them faster than you guys in a lot of conditions.
I can't tell you how. The last time I ordered something, they were sitting on the docks.
Yeah.
And that wasn't cool. I mean, it wasn't the publisher's fault. It was the printery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Christine had this idea that she would make a lot of money. And she said, I want to share this with you. And before she died, she wanted me to have the copyright to the book so it could keep going. I tried to explain to her, well, books take a while and to bang out, and they don't really make money that quickly. So she bent, at the time, the editor Pendraig is pretty small. It's still kind of small, and Peter Padden, who's now unfortunately passed away, was the cook, the bottle washer, and the waiter. And he put this together. He had a portrait of Sybil Leek painted for him because there's some issues with using her actual likeness in photographs, unfortunately. And it was taking so long that Christine was losing patience and he was losing patience, and they had a few arguments. He was from the same area of England as she was. I forgot to mention that she was English and came over to New Jersey at first, and then when she made contact with Sybil Leek, she invited her down there, and that's where she stayed, and she died in 2008, I believe, and unfortunately Sybil Leek passed away in 82. But they were, the publisher, the editor, and Christine were so at loggerheads that Peter just banged the whole thing out, and it was a mess. It got terrible reviews, and there was no censor on it.
Yeah.
When I cleaned it up, I still kept Christine's voice, but I took away some of the more contentious stuff, just hinting at it, because it was a matter of point of view, and I don't know. Her son, one of her sons, said, "You know what? She was a liar," and in those cases, you don't know. And one of the things I did in this manuscript, which I had redone back in 2010, is I put in a note that I don't know exactly what was what. This is what it is.
Yes.
I take it for what it is. But this is important because it's about two elders, and these days the people are these younger, which is millennials, Gen Z, and that they are losing touch with people like Sybil Leek and Christine Jones.
Or never had it.
Yeah.
So for those listening that don't know who Sybil Leek is,
which is a shame.
Can you give us a quick, brief overview?
Well, she's a controversial figure because she had written two books. One was a diary of a witch, and let's see, the complete book of witchcraft, and a few other things that she put her personal life into, and some of it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
But she was a witch.
Yeah.
Very much so. Her magic was very simple, and it came down to using her mind. She could raise fire. What she would do is she would concentrate, and she just had a little verbal spell, which I think was just more for effect. But she could take something from embers and rise it right up, and then put it right back down.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's one of the things people will find in the new book. The manuscript, I changed from Sybil Leek Out of the Shadows to My Life with Sybil Leek. And then the publisher has it now as A Tale of Two Witches, which I think is rather nice.
Yeah.
It was about to go to press, and then this was, my goodness, maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago. They had the cover all nice, and there were little teacups on the. The funny thing is, Sybil Leek hated tea.
She was British.
And so
that convention was forced on her a little bit too much. She probably bucked convention.
Yeah. I remember in the complete book of witchcraft, she said, because Anton LaVey was taunting her, saying, you know, she's this nice white witch, and, you know, too busy drinking tea or something like that. And then she retorts, I loathe tea. Well,
Well, she was kind of famous for, like, trapping a Nazi.
She did a lot of things that people wouldn't know about.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool.
She
got him arrested.
With a fake horoscope?
Yeah.
Fake
astrology.
You know what?
Yeah.
One of the things that she did do was she was one of those who created fake horoscopes.
Yeah.
She did a lot of other things during the war as well.
Yeah. You got to wonder. Because you're looking at some of the other players in the wars, you know, like Doreen Valiente and all those guys, and they were working for the crown, kind of behind the scenes, and you kind of got to look at that. And she trapped a damn Nazi. She probably was too. Secret squirrels everywhere.
She was very sharp. She was an astute businesswoman. She knew how to do things. When she came over to America, she was far better received than in England. When she lived in the New Forest, the name of the village escapes me right now. She ran an antique shop. That's what she used to do. And the landlord didn't like the fact that she was a witch. Even though the name of the antique shop was, I think it was Two Witches. Somebody will have to correct me on that.
See the one she had the land fight with over the grounds of the store?
I don't know.
I read something about it, but I didn't know if it was true or not. It was. So you're saying that actually happened over the antique store, the fight with the landlord?
Right.
Yeah.
They lived upstairs, and the antique store was downstairs. And when she got too much publicity for being a witch, that's when they wanted her out. Even though the New Forest was known for its witches.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, just a little side note, is when in 1951, when the anti-witchcraft laws in Britain were lifted, all sorts of people came out from the underground, and everyone.
The broom closet.
Well, right. There's this idea that it was only Gerald Gardner who popped up because he was the most flamboyant, and once his elders died,
Mr. Oversexed himself.
He just went wild because his elders wouldn't care for that. But after the last one died, that was it. But the fact that there were other people out there that weren't influenced by Gardner at all, that were coming up, and they all had something different about themselves and some things that were very much the same.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that really interesting.
Interesting? Yeah.
So
like he was kind of a thief? Interesting? Yeah, yeah.
Well, everybody thinks of him because it's the most known.
Yeah.
Well, if you look back at
by design,
his source, I do believe that there was a previous coven, that it wasn't prefabricated. I'm of the mind, which is, I suppose, unpopular today, that Margaret Murray wasn't entirely off the track. I won't bore everyone with why I think that. However, I do think that there were so many coming up out of the shadows, and still a lot of people that were under, because you've heard the phrase, witchcraft doesn't pay for broken windows.
That's right. Yeah.
And some that just never came up. Even like here in America, there's still people who you never will know about.
Oh, yeah.
Never.
Yeah, we've met a few. Yeah,
there's a few locally like that.
Yeah.
That are very
and
quiet.
they're very much in the shadows.
Yeah.
They're very much in the public eye. And they have to be very careful.
And I understand it.
Yeah, I do too,
We were
completely.
the same way for years.
Down
because
south, yeah.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right, they'll poke their nose up just a little bit like they did with you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's people that you won't ever hear about.
Yeah, they know
ever.
they're safe when they poke their nose up. And that name will never be uttered. So, yeah.
And just like what we were talking about at first, where the Pennsylvania Dutch or the Catholics, and they were practitioners, but I think my grandmother was like that. You know,
God,
she had a great cover, deaconess in a Baptist church.
Uh-huh.
But if you went to her house
It was all Pennsylvania Dutch.
It was 100% Pennsylvania Dutch.
Yeah.
And she talked about Pennsylvania Dutch with a few people.
Yeah,
very
family.
You know, even in the family, she kept it quiet. But
Especially with the ones that are, what are they? Oh, yeah. Their cousins, they mow their lawn and stuff like that. And she was very, they do their little thing, and she didn't talk to them about it at all.
No, they were the 1980s Muggles. But no, she was very active practitioner, but it was behind closed doors always. The minute she walked out the door, it was the First Baptist deaconess.
You got the prim and proper.
Very proper, very, anointed herself with rose oil all the time.
Yes.
And,
the whole house smelled like roses.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The oil of Olay and roses and the rose perfume and rose sachets in the drawer, and it was just
all
crazy.
she talked about was their time in Pittsburgh
beautiful.
and when she was a child and how she never really divulged any practice per se. It was very quiet, but
very obvious.
It wasn't just a fangirl of Pennsylvania Dutch culture.
No.
It was deeper than that.
But like any of the other ethnic practices, it was always just at the surface, and people would talk a little bit, amongst themselves. Here's that one, here's Granny that, and
But I think it was understood, don't you? That
it was.
It was just an understanding. It was not like they were trying to hide anything. I don't think they were trying to hide a thing. It's just it was common everyday practice. And I see that in the natives a lot. And I see that in people that are still, invested in Mexico and stuff like that. They still have their day-to-day practices. That Santa Muerte, for example, is a common everyday saint, for them. And it's not like they're doing anything nefarious. But when it comes into this country or Europe or something like that, it becomes some oogity-boogity occult thing. And it's not. It's an everyday common person's practice. And I think that annoys the shit out of me. I'm sorry. It does.
It's interesting you mention Santísima Muerte, because my wife is a devotee of Santa Muerte.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, sweetie. Are you glad that I've divulged something?
I think it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
It's a beautiful tradition.
Yeah.
Well, she was always the atheist. She still has a really strong streak of skepticism, which I do.
I think you should.
Which I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm open to a lot of things. I've personally experienced a lot of strange things, especially having grown up in a haunted house. I know that sounds so cliche, but it was
if
for
you
all
live
sorts
here,
of reasons.
Of course it's haunted. Of course.
I told you about the time when my father, the front parlor, the good parlor, well, there was a broken lamp. And he had it unplugged until he could redo the wiring on it. And to my knowledge, he didn't. And then all of a sudden, I was coming down the hallway looking into the parlor, and the light was on. I thought, oh, he fixed it. And then I got a look at it, and it wasn't even plugged in. And then it didn't. What it did was just like a dimmer bulb. It just slowly went on, and I was like, oh.
They're like, hi, Chris.
And you would think that somebody would say, well, weren't you terrified? And no, not when you're seeing shadowed people.
No.
And some people can say that I'm full of shit if they want to. I don't care. I know what I've seen and experienced.
Doesn't matter a damn. Yeah.
Being touched.
Yeah, all the time.
Poked.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I was never scratched by anything.
I was.
'Cause
very young. Yeah.
My mother was... When my mother found out about my interests, she rattled a whole bunch of stuff off, and she mentioned incubi and succubi and succubi, and she was like, oh, you're surprised, you don't think I know about this stuff. And the reason is because when she was a little girl, every now and then something would undo the bedclothes and try to take her jammies off of her.
Yeah.
And she'd start screaming, and my grandmother and grandfather would come running in. And this happened all the way until she was married. This thing would come and just about within a hair's breadth of molesting her.
Yeah.
So that's when she found out about me, she said, "You think I don't know about this stuff, do you?"
Oh.
That generation didn't really talk a lot.
They don't.
About
No.
and they kept things under their hat a little bit better.
And they'd shush you if you did, too.
Yeah.
They were,
it was
they
like
were
not
nice,
polite
right?
conversation.
Yeah. No.
Well,
Don't say that in front of other people.
I didn't find out about my paternal grandmother, Grandma Josephine, until I was with my one elder cousin, and we were talking about Grandma Josephine, and just very nonchalantly he was saying about how she would do this and that, and there was a ghost on the other side of the double, and how she got rid of it, and all this other stuff. And I was like, when was somebody going to tell me about this? My father never mentioned it. Well, that kind of stuff always gave him the heebie-jeebies to begin with.
I love that.
Yeah, it was like nobody bothered to mention this, but many of the people who came over here, I don't know, later, 19th century, early 20th century, they just didn't feel the need to talk about some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you didn't ask, you didn't get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't know what's up with that. If you didn't ask for the family genealogy, no.
Yeah, I know.
I did ask for ours, and it kept
got
from
it.
me.
Yeah. Never got it.
Asked and asked. And my grandma commissioned back in the 80s a professional genealogist to do research on the family. And he did a wonderful job and went back all the way overseas to Scotland and
Wow.
England and Wales. And I wanted a copy of it. And after her death, one of my relatives had possession of it, and he wouldn't give it up for anybody, wouldn't even let me see it.
I think I know why.
And when I did so I went to Ancestry and we used the DNA, and I found, after a few months' work, a lot of the same results that corroborated with the things that I remembered having seen it at Grandma's house when she was alive. And I tried to get more things from Ancestry because he was on there too, and he wouldn't budge at all. I couldn't get any history at all from him. Had to do everything on her own.
Didn't one of the family members of his come forward and ask you if he could see what you had?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, screw you. You guys aren't willing to share. Yeah. It's terrible.
It's just like, what is the big secret? Because I can see, Ancestry does it via DNA.
I see what the big secret with my family was.
Trace everything. Yeah.
One of the things about many of the Pennsylvania Dutch, they had these huge family Bibles, and they would write everything down, everybody's date of birth, death,
we had one of those.
baptism, and there wasn't much wandering, and so you had to get to the part where if they came from the Palatinate or Hesse or something like that.
Yeah.
Schwarzenau.
Well, you know something, though, the DNA has revealed that there were a lot of lies and obfuscations in those family Bibles. Because you find out that we should have stuck with matrilinear line to know exactly who we are and where we come from, because, there's some shocking shit in there.
Yeah.
I'm a proud Melungeon. I don't hide it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen a few where there was no white out then, but you could see something.
Yes.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
They
took a gum eraser and went to it, buddy.
You should be proud of that heritage.
Yes. But they're not. And that's the funniest thing. I took great delight in telling my siblings that, hey, it said he was a freedman. Do you know what that means? You little racist. Do you know what that means? Yeah. That's your grandpa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's just like the ancient Egyptians. When they wanted something to stop existing, they carved out the cartouche and it didn't exist anymore.
Why is that blank spot in the cartouche?
They did that. Wasn't it a female pharaoh that did that?
Yes.
What was her name?
Was it?
It's not. I keep thinking Imhotep.
I've got a bust of her sitting on that.
Nefertiti?
Nefertiti.
No, it was a different pharaoh.
It's a different pharaoh that pretended to be a man.
No, she
And
was
they
a
didn't-
woman, and she
and
was
they
very
didn't-
successful.
yeah.
And they cut her out of history.
I can't
or
remember
something.
which one
I'm
that
not
was.
up on my Egyptian,
Yeah.
but
Didn't they do that with Akhenaten? Because he forced monotheism on them.
I'm thinking that they wrote a few out of history because now they're digging them up and they're finding out that, wait a minute, we didn't know about this one, we didn't know about that, and there's just been a recent tomb discovery too, and I'm like, yeah.
I do love
yeah.
that about science, though, is
Yeah.
that they're willing to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
And we've been proven wrong in a lot of things in the recent years.
Yes.
Different ages when we thought evolution took place, or even
Yeah.
before that.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
like-
fascinating.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
science, real science.
I do
that
too. I do
uses
too.
the scientific method. I don't like scientism.
Yeah, no, oh hell no.
No,
I don't
the
like
refusal-
anyism.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I find a little bit questionable is when religions and even what we do, we try to sometimes base upon the existing science, and the science always changes. And
Yes.
I think
That's the purpose of science.
I think that there's one tradition that has its calls it's some of its curriculum is witchcraft as a science. Now,
Yeah.
I understand why it was called that, but the science always changes. And then what do we have to do? I mean, even in the Orthodox big three religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, I know that there are some Sufis who try to keep up with that, but no.
Yeah.
You stay with your traditions, you keep with your metaphysics as they have been passed down. And don't worry about what science is doing. It's interesting, keep note of it, but don't try to have like little legs under yourself with that.
It's almost
Yeah.
apologetics is what it is.
I think it's referencing more the method of thought.
Yeah.
The way
Yeah.
that, you have your evidence and you have your information, but if someone comes along that can refute that and it's valid, then you need to reconsider.
Yeah,
And not be so certain of everything.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
I'm not certain of anything.
Yeah.
even
At all.
Einstein, there are people before Einstein, such as Nikola Tesla, who had an entirely different vision of how the universe operates.
Yeah.
And Einstein just happened to win the day, as it were, and just like Edison,
Who everybody remembers.
Edison trumped over Tesla, and Einstein.
I mean, he literally stole his work.
Einstein's people shot over Tesla, and
Yeah.
he was a very interesting man with very interesting ideas.
Yes. And whoever had the funding or the backing, politically speaking, won the day. And it's just the way.
How did Mark put it? He who has the most gold makes the rules?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't
Pretty
put
much.
it. He just quoted something.
Yeah.
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 That's
It's really ridiculous.
I think there's a second part to that statement, too, and I can't remember.
And the fact that the people don't see it still, and this is repeated throughout history, I think that's the one thing that really sits in my craw and like a pit, because they don't see it, and I think that they don't want to see it. They don't want to see the puppeteer.
Well, they want something simple
Yeah.
that they can digest.
Yeah, yeah,
Easy, and move
something
on.
easy. I want to go to work, and I want to come home every day, and I want to relax.
The amount of times we get people that
Yeah.
come in, I need a spell.
Yeah, yeah. No.
And it's always like
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes before close. I'm like, we don't have time to go into this
Yes.
right now.
And sometimes I do, and he shoots me dirty looks because it's like 20 after 8, and I'm still talking to this person.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's quite a bit around that, too. In powwow and a few other practices, there's no money exchanged.
Right.
But at one time there was, amongst the cunning men and women, silver crossing the palm and all that.
Yeah.
It wasn't done for free because these people had to make a living. This was their profession.
This was their living, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think you should have skin in the game, too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes, they pester you every 5 seconds for every little thing.
Sure, there's
and
bartering, but
Yeah.
yeah.
but
But
they
I
need
mean-
money.
But if they
Yeah.
have to, if you monetize it, it kind of keeps the looky-loos away. Is that what you're saying? It kind of,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, look, when we first started, I was making spell candles.
yeah.
And,
Oh, my God.
And then
It was
I
a
made
nightmare.
one for a lady, and I was getting messages at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Look at pictures of the candle and the progress, and I'm like, look, that's not how this works.
What did I tell you?
This
Light it and let it
was
go.
made for you. Go be in the moment. That's
Yeah.
it. We're done. I'm not. Your purchase of the candle did not come with 24-hour consultation service
No.
on the progress of the operation. That's on you. I just gave you a tool.
And I think you only charged her like $25, and it was a very ornate and carved.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was the last candle that I carved.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope, done.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, materials cost money,
You know.
candles cost money, and
We weren't really making anything off of it.
Yeah.
It was more of a service, but the service became so pestering
Yeah.
and so incessant that I don't have time to. And we get asked all the time, and we've talked about it. People will say, I just moved into a new place. Can you guys come bless it? Well, one, that's not what we do. But then I think, should we be doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've talked about.
get a priest.
Yeah.
But
Right?
But I understand it, especially with the history. If you look at the cunning tradition and the people that came to them for help,
Yeah.
and so on one side, I'm like, are we doing the wrong thing by saying no? But on the other side, do I really have time to do this?
Well, that's another thing. Time.
And
The frustration
if you
is
do
there.
it for one, and then you're going to get inundated, and I don't know. The past history with the candle thing has kind of made me go, none of it. We don't do it at all.
Yeah.
But I feel also, are we doing a disservice? And I'm kind of on the fence.
And then the tarot
there.
reading thing was the same thing because they get addicted to the reader
Yeah.
and they get attached to the reader.
Or they get attached to the oracle.
Yeah. Then they want to come back constantly.
Oh, I'm getting phone calls still.
And the story's not going to change. You know?
You need to read again.
Yeah.
It was such a psychic drain while trying to run a busy store when
Yeah.
Tay's out there by herself and I get a line of people, and I'm like, it's just better to outsource this, and we'll find somebody else. That's why Liz is here.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I don't have that. It takes in anyone who does a genuine divination. I don't know anyone, but let's say most people, I feel would probably feel similar. It drains you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You do one or two, and you've got to really cleanse in between those. You got to clear yourself because people come in with psychic baggage, and it fills the room.
Yeah.
This is why this store is blessed at least once a day, and sometimes more than once a day. And so she's been like, "You need to read. You need to read." I get phone calls. I'm like, it's too much. It's too much to deal with, and then go out and change gears and pour tea and that kind of stuff.
Make polite conversation when you just channeled for an hour.
It's difficult. But
Yeah.
Again, I feel a sense of guilt that should I be doing something for the community? Am I? It's not just me. There's 1,000 people in 10 square miles from here that can do probably the same thing that I can.
I think the problem you're running into is people don't accept boundaries, and you have to set healthy boundaries when you're doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you keep your boundaries just as much as you make sure they keep their boundaries, because the inclination is to, oh my God, they need me, I got to do it.
Yeah.
I've seen that burn out so many healers because it's either one that they feel compelled to be the healer and be there when people need them and they actually need the healing and they don't feel like they can take a break because they got to be there for that person. Or two, they're worried about losing the monetary part of it because if I turn them away, they'll go and find somebody else. They'll tell other people and I'll lose business. And you've got all this lot of unhealed healers running around here, working on people when they're not well themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And it becomes a vicious cycle.
And I think that's why I just put my foot down and said, done. We're not doing it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the money. It's trying to help someone, but
Yeah.
at what cost?
Yeah.
You
At
know,
what
become-
cost? Because you're trying to kind of scrape all this off of you too.
Yeah.
And you don't have the time to actually commit to really cleansing and grounding yourself because you got a business to run.
Yeah.
And then when you don't have a business to run, you got a yard to mow and you got a house to clean, you got shopping to do.
Yeah, it's just too much. Whereas, in the olden days, we could be at the house in the dark woods that people were afraid to come to.
Yeah, you're always
and your ass has got to trudge through that to ask us a good question. Now in the modern age with social media, it's
oh my God,
sort of like in Pumpkinhead going to
exactly.
Haggis.
Yes.
I would do the work then if I had the Pumpkinhead farm.
Yeah.
If you can make it through my gauntlet, then maybe we can have a conversation. Bring a goat.
So I'm going to ask you, other than your conversation with Christine, what made you want to write about Sybil?
Actually, she wrote about Sybil.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I would keep it in publication, which I'm doing what she asked me to do.
So it's for a friend.
For a friend.
More than your...
This is not my book.
Yeah.
It's going to be A Tale of Two Witches by Christine Jones. I'm just the editor.
Yeah.
And I just made the footnotes and the commentary, and I'm the one who cleaned it up and reformatted it and all that. It's hers.
Yeah.
Well, you write very well, though, and I really enjoyed The Red Church. I haven't read it completely yet, but probably a better part of it. And it's for those of you that are looking for an excellent book on Pennsylvania Dutch, I cannot recommend that.
And you got a high compliment on it day before yesterday.
Yeah.
Christina Button was here, and she is huge into Pennsylvania Dutch and her family and the history of her family. And she said, I actually really am so happy to read this book because he included a lot of history in it. And she said, you don't find that a lot. You find people talking about, the practices and stuff, but not the history. And she said, I actually was able to see a mention of my family who came over on the ship in his book. And she said that it was great. So you got a really high compliment from her.
Well, at one point, Mark Stavish was saying to me, there's a time you got to stop because it was growing and growing and growing. There was a point when even the Mona Lisa had to be...
That's funny.
Well... What I wanted to do was give everything context, because there was a book written back in the 90s that was supposed to be about powwow and had spells to ISIS and all this other stuff. And I thought, I have to fix this.
You're like, how the hell did that happen?
The 80s happened.
Yeah. Oh my God.
90s. Yeah.
Mark wrote the foreword to it, and he said about that book, this was the only book that I ever threw in the garbage.
When he told us about that, I had the perfect visual of Mark's face and just utter disgust and it's fucking shit. Oh. It brought a smile to my face.
It's crap.
And I think that's what in the beginning caught me so much crap because of that.
Yeah.
And there was a certain group of people, the head of which said, held up my book, this is a pagan hater. This is a pagan hater.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
And...
where do you think the pagans come from, bitches? I mean, really.
And then
we're hiding everywhere.
Then they commenced to put a curse on my book. And I know this because one of her followers, the third degree, was going to leave, and he contacted me and said, you better know that this is happening. And instead of just one coven of 13, there was actually more than one that hived off and conglomerated around this. And I think, and I was naive at the time. I didn't protect myself, and I got burnt.
Yeah.
So cursing is real. It does happen, and if you're not ready for it,
it has a way of coming back around
yes,
to
does.
the caster, though.
Bite you in the ass. Drink.
Oh, thank you.
Especially if it's unwarranted or done in a manner like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's...
Yeah. It's so childish. It's so insecure. I mean, I could go for days about how fucking insecure the action of that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you are so admired in making a name out of whatever this practice is that you have, that you negate everybody else who practices some form of what you practice based on their religious or political beliefs is just so beneath you and insecure.
It's a threat to your monetization.
Yeah. Well, no, it's
you
not.
You might be full of shit.
If you're real and what you're putting out there is of any worth and value whatsoever, it is not a fucking threat.
Yeah. Well,
you're just
that's the adult way of looking at things.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the adult way of looking at
No, right? No, we're not.
Well, as one person put it to me when I started having troubles, he said, "You're threatening their pile of bananas."
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Oh.
And there was a Hunter Yoder told me about when my book first came out, how it was like a neutron bomb when it.
That's fabulous.
And I didn't know any of this. There was another group of people who were trying to turn the practice of powwowing into like a form of Reiki and making a guild out of it.
Oh, good Lord.
And charging $600 a head just for the classes, not for the so-called initiation or whatever they called it to be taught. There was no initiations in powwow. And I'm not saying they called it initiation, but once you went through the classes at $600 a head, then if they thought you had potential to move energy or whatever, they would take you as a student right on and teach you. And I ruined it.
You ruined it. You ruined it all.
I had a great banana chain going.
Because
I almost had it, if not for those damn Bilardis.
that damn Dago with the vowel on the end of his name.
I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yes, there is.
And I mean, look, our initiation was carrying a duffel bag full of candles and incense up a hill that was
wine, candles, incense. Shut up! I was the neophyte.
There was no monetary exchange. It was sweat equity.
Yes.
Well, it had to be a witch hill.
I mean, damn! Did y'all need so many fucking candles? I mean, really?
Absolutely.
2.5 miles in knee-high snow. With a backpack, duffel bag, not even a good backpack. It's a duffel bag they foisted on me, full of fucking candles, wine, you name it, accoutrement of all kinds.
Oh, gosh, that reminds me of both Alex Sanders and his people and Robert Cochran, Roy Bowers. One of the stories, both were identical. That they're going to their spot and their bags are clanking.
Yes. You can hear us coming for miles.
Hey, on Bob Cochran, did you see Shawnee Oates has got a new Bob Cochran book that's going to release this year?
Oh, what's it called?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure, but it's due out fall of this year. Oh. We will have copies.
To some extent, I have a lot of influence from Roy Bowers.
Yeah.
I found him in my 30s and I thought, you know what, this vibrates very well. And he had a type of Luciferianism.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this dark goth kind of
bullshit that we've got these days, yeah.
Or like the
cosplay.
More like the up in like Sweden and Norway and those places where they're into this death metal and burning down stave churches and
Viking bros.
Yeah, Viking bros. I love it.
Satanic Viking bros.
Unga.
So fucking stupid.
I found Shani's work as she took it further very interesting. That she traced so much of it to Woden.
Yeah,
and I have a great interest in Woden.
Me too. Yeah,
and it's like, well, Wodenism, okay. This is another thing I added to my plate where my wife says, do you know what you want? You have so many interests. What are you?
I don't know what I am either.
I am what I am becoming. The place.
Yes, I am what I am becoming.
Yep.
I just find all sorts of knowledge and all sorts of things like that. There's so much to be known, so many fascinating things. How can somebody...
You just put it in a box. You can't put it in a box.
No.
Like you said, I think I'm more of an occultist than
Yes.
anything else.
Absolutely.
I love it all
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Not the whatever the fuck half the super popular shit is.
So what do you
not
call
so
your
much.
art? You call it a labor of fucking love.
Yeah.
A labor of love.
I think occultists kind of, if you got to put a label on something, because we're American, we have to put labels on shit.
Yeah. Must have label, must
But
have belt.
I think being an occultist is an appreciation for the knowledge from anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, as so long as you can validate that knowledge.
And I'm a thorn in the side of most people because I'm a purist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to know exactly where it came from. I want to know exactly who it belongs to, so I don't ever do it any injustice.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
and
a respect thing.
Yeah, it is.
That's a problem for Americans because I've heard maybe it's the same down in Australia. I don't know. I don't live down there, but I know I live here, and I know that we're Mots. I have
Heinz 57.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I
Jinx.
have Italian on both sides of my family. I have an Italian surname, but there's a good part of me that comes from Ireland, Wales, and England.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a part of me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, just think, I did my DNA, and I really got just totally mind blown. Because I always thought, well, I'm Native, I know, and Scottish, I know, and Welsh, I know, you know, and there's some Irish in there, and I knew that, and then the DNA came back, and I'd always had this huge affinity for anything Mesopotamian, and my DNA showed I was from the Fertile Crescent, and the Horn of Africa.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it explains a lot because I'm a Melungeon. I'm one of those North Carolina Melungeons. And so that was sort of a point of contention in the family because a lot of the family are kind of racist.
Kinda.
Yeah, it was sort of fun for me to point out that,
shit.
that we were definitely Melungeon because we had this whole native
I didn't
thing.
think you were from that family. When I first went down there, this woman is not related to these
I was
people.
a thorn in their fucking side. I'm sorry.
How did this happen? Because you knew nothing like that at all.
Not at all.
My maternal grandmother's family wasn't racist, it wasn't like that at all. But my grandmother, when she was a baby, they called her Chocolate Baby because she was darker than everyone else.
A sweet chocolate baby. I love baby.
But then as she got older, her skin got lighter and lighter. Yeah. When I was a boy, my skin was Mediterranean olive. Yeah. But then as I got older, the Irish...
kind of took over and kicked in.
Yeah.
You're a speckled pup now.
Well, I mean, if somebody were to look at me, they probably wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Although my mother once said, "You have Etruscan eyes." And I was like, what?
What? Well, that's funny. Our friend David came over from Ireland, and he was like, "You don't look American," because in the summer, I don't burn, and I get this weird, almost olive bronze.
Mm-hmm.
And this one will go out on the water, and he'll be a lobster,
instant lobster, instant.
And he's like, "Why didn't you burn?" I'm like, "Well, that's native," and now I find out, Mesopotamian and African. So I don't, I've got, what did she say to me?
Melanin, baby.
Yeah, she said to me today that said melanin pro melanin. Yeah.
That's right.
But I started out very light skinned.
Yeah.
But I noticed that a lot of my aunts did too, but the older they got, the darker they got, and the more native they looked. Mm-hmm. But Daddy just always looked like he stepped off a reservation somewhere, and just fell into civilization. It was weird.
And people ask us all the time, especially people that are curious, like, where do I start? And I'm like, well, start with your ancestry.
Yeah. Perfect place to start.
Learn about your ancestors, and, the good and the bad. And not all ancestry is good.
Oh, there's some bad ones.
There's some people you may not be proud to talk about, but you should still learn about it and, go from there. And it doesn't mean, people have the misconception that if I read something, I need to incorporate something into my practice. No, you don't. You can just read something for the knowledge. Yeah. Like I love hearing customers from different traditions.
Oh God, yeah.
We have a lot of
Talk more, say more.
Santeria. We have a lot of Yoruba. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Am I going to practice that? No, it's not my place. But it's very interesting to learn about.
I'm going to honor the hell out of it.
From a practitioner's point of view.
Yeah.
If they're willing to talk about it. And I find that to be one of the most rewarding things of having the store.
Yeah.
Is meeting so many people from so many different traditions and hearing their points of view.
Yeah.
Whether it's Pennsylvania Dutch, whether we want Hunter here.
Yeah.
And,
you hear it? You hear us, Hunter Yoder?
We had a wonderful conversation with him.
Yeah.
Would love to have him and Rachel here to do a workshop, to do a podcast, to hang out and drink a cold one. I don't care. We would love to have him come on. I know it's a haul from Boyerstown.
Oh, yeah.
But
he's awesome, though.
Oh,
yeah, he is.
Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both of them.
Yeah. And their work is just, it's amazing.
Is he opening back up in Philly?
What?
Hex, the Hex Factory.
Philly.
Yeah, I think he was thinking, somebody said that they thought he was thinking about opening in Philly because they saw a picture of the Hex Factory Philly. And it's a building that's got,
I don't know.
that's
I need
got.
to ask him.
I need to ask him about that because if he's that damn close, yeah.
Wonderful people.
Yeah.
Books. We carry their books as well. And amazing art. We've got hex signs.
No.
And I love the way that he combined the Germanic runes with the hex art.
Yes.
And
I think it's a perfect pairing.
It's beautiful.
Actually, he's taken some. I think he's taken some on the chin for it, but I think it's an absolutely perfect pairing.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that's its root. The Germanic root. So
there's a lot of power in those hex.
Yeah.
And whether you feel it or not, I feel it. To me, it means something because it's ancestral. But
well, you're right. He did get a lot of backfire from that because he was being creative.
I see nothing wrong with that. They were creative in their creation of hex signs too back in the day. I mean, if you look at them, they're not all the same.
No.
Yeah.
I have one
They're
chapter.
familial.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had one chapter in the Red Church that addressed hex signs, and I approached it from the skeptical angle because that's the only one I could find, really, that there is no evidence that I could find that they were actually used in magical rites.
Right. Yeah, no, me
because
either. Yeah.
The saying was these signs were used for shay, just for nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember Hunter said something about that in one of his books too.
Yeah, especially like the barn stars and stuff like that. And that I think that was just decor. I honestly do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I believe it was 1819 or 1820, around the early. Around that period, that's when the first barn stars started appearing.
Yeah.
And it was in a specific county, and I should know this, but when I look at my book, and it was done so long ago, it took me 4 years to research, 4 years to write, because I'm working full-time, and when I look at my book today, it's like, who the hell wrote this?
Yes, you've evolved.
And it's like, did I write this? And so I pumped myself so full of information that it runs out the other side of my ear. So if the book will seem like I know all my stuff, but so much when you pack your mind of years and years. Again, when I started all this, I was 12.
Yeah.
And over all those decades, I just jammed so much in me that I've forgotten more than some people know.
Yes.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's completely understunderstandable.
No, and you're inundated, and it's like there's only so many wrinkles the brain can take before it starts to collapse on itself. And then all the information gets compacted down in there.
Especially as we get older.
Yeah, oh my God, it's awful. It's awful. Yeah,
I do believe it's in there somewhere if you could tap into it, but
stay away from Neuralink. Just don't.
That's scary.
That is terrifying.
So when
what is that?
That's that brain implant that Musk is trying to to put in people's brains.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Well, if it was totally innocent, which things like that usually are not, I'd love to absorb more, but you don't know what the back door on those things are.
No, hell no, you don't. And they're already doing it in a certain manner. If I understand the concept of it right, because I was showing him this morning, I have turned off the speech on my phone so that they're not listening to my conversations, but it's not working. Because we were sitting there, we were just talking about something political, and up popped a political ad.
Well, it wasn't just political; it was the exact thing.
The exact
you were talking
party
about.
we were talking about. And it's not one of the two parties.
Where's my tinfoil?
Yeah, and it just popped up on my freaking phone, and I was like, "Here's proof right here," because it happened as we were talking about it.
I know. You know, sometimes my wife's and mine as well, because I got a new phone, that Alexa will go on all by herself.
Yes, and then start talking to you about what you're talking about. Then make shut up.
And it's like, what the? I didn't touch anything. What?
Yes.
And
I unplugged her ass because I was calling her eavesdropper, and she was arguing.
We were going to rename her Wiretap.
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 And then there's the smart televisions.
Yes, I've got that.
Smart appliances. Mm-hmm. Some people say that the smart televisions are actually taking notes on you.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
It's going, that's with a big push with electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Well, you've already heard of Teslas repossessing themselves, or not Teslas, but electric vehicles. If you don't pay your payments,
they'll drive themselves
not
back.
only will they shut it down from you, they'll drive the car will drive back to the dealership.
Yeah.
I've also
Without
heard,
your ass.
Yes. Bye, y'all.
I've also heard that someday there may be an option for if you're on the run or you're speeding, that the police can just shut your car.
Yes, that option is actually in the works.
Is it really?
That's not a false narrative. That is actually in the works. Yeah.
So you're not running away anywhere.
You're not running away anywhere unless you're on foot.
They just pull you over somewhere.
And I think Neuralink will figure that out. Neuralink will just slow you down.
Probably shut you down.
Shut you down.
You have a McConnell blue screen of death moment.
Yeah. What terrifies me is that we've already had one AI go sentient on us. And the self-destruct code for the AI didn't work, and they had to destroy it. Yeah.
Did you hear? You heard about the God gene, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it, and I just read something about they found out genetically how to destroy the part of the God gene.
Oh.
I've not read the whole thing. It was upsetting, and I don't know enough about it but they found some way they found what that piece is and to just make it go away.
Well, the DMT is what causes the spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they were claiming, but we know differently, that it only happens when you're born and when you die, that you have that experience and that connection with whatever the universal narrative is, God, whatever you want to call it. And now we know that we can use mimosa and experience DMT, that flood of DMT again, into the brain and have that God experience. So it happens in a certain sector, and it happens on a certain part of the DNA, probably in a ribonucleic acid that occurs in that area. So they're figuring out how to inoculate us against certain things using mRNA. And I'm wondering if that's what they're talking about doing, is shutting down the strand. Yeah.
The way I reckon it is this, that human beings wouldn't be able to know anything about the divine if there wasn't something within us that resonates with it.
Yes, it's absolutely part and participle of us.
And I don't think destroying any one thing is going to stop that, because that's how we were built.
Yeah,
and just because these evil bastards want to erase that for whatever reason.
Well, they want to make us all Spock.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Franken pagans.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be anymore. You'd just be a logical body.
Be a citizen of the state.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
absolutely.
much so. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah. That's dark.
My wiring. It's not wired that way.
No. But it concerns me because they're starting to insert mRNA in a lot of virus injections, a lot of different.
We don't know enough about
injectable article, and it's not targeted.
Yeah.
And from what I understood about working with RNA, is that when you're doing genetic coding for a person to root out disease or, change the code on the strand and using your mRNA to do that it's specifically targeted. So how do we know what they're targeting with their vaccinations? What do we know? And I don't want to be anti-vaxxer because thank goodness for Dr. Salk. Polio's gone. There is some merit to some of them. But it still scares me.
Well, in today's age, everything is insidious.
Yeah, it's very insidious.
And so people are rightly skeptical of everything.
Yeah.
Because so many times the things that have been told us.
And well, you should be.
There's a whole underlying current that they don't tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I completely understand the skeptic. You're not putting that in my body. No, you can't be. You're an anti-vax. No.
Yeah, no.
Just concerned because.
No, I just don't fucking trust you.
Back in the day, as you say, Dr. Salk, and things were more. It was more trustworthy. It seems to me that after World War II, things turned dark and sinister, and that's when you got all of these. What's it called? MK Ultra and all these other things, and I read of one experiment they were doing on us back in the 60s. They took a car and they put some kind of chemical in the exhaust, and they were driving around New York City in the tunnels, seeing what it would do to people. And then amongst back in the late 70s, early 80s, when AIDS became a thing and stopped the party, many of us are now convinced, just like so many people were then, many black people and gay people said this was targeted towards us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's almost undeniable now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember when I went to Washington, D.C., and I saw that damned quilt. It went on and on and on.
Yeah,
it was
I remember
definitely
that.
targeted, and I want you to remember who had part in that. Fauci.
Oh, that son of a bitch.
And people, what they don't realize is that there has been a law in the books that we couldn't work on biological warfare in this country. However, this disease we just went through, COVID, was being bioengineered at a lab in North Carolina on a college campus. I'll keep my mouth shut so for not getting sued. But Fauci was a part of that, and he knew full well they couldn't take it any further here. So he signed the check that sent it to China for further study.
Mm-hmm.
His signature is actually on the money that went there. And then he became this hero over here. And that, to me, was exceedingly dark because you're responsible, and now you're the hero telling us how to deal with it.
Right. There were two doctors, I believe. It was Fauci and there was a Simon LeVay.
Yeah. Interesting last name, isn't it? Yeah.
Spelt differently.
Mm-hmm. It's really creepy.
It is creepy, and I think it all happened after World War II because President Eisenhower warned us.
He did.
Yes.
He warned us about...
complex.
That's right.
Yeah. But at the same time, and I have to step in here and be the bearer of bad news, they also knew about the bombing that was about to occur on Pearl Harbor before it ever happened, and let it happen. And my uncle was in a sub there and saw the whole thing take place. And they knew. There were whispers in the wind that they knew it was coming, and they didn't warn us. And left our boys in uniform sitting in that harbor and as sitting ducks. And I think, personally, that was, allowed so that they could further their war effort, because now they've attacked us on our own soil.
Yeah.
And now we have more reason to jump in, because I think they wanted to take the war from the war theater in Europe to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in modern times, you see that's why the push to get rid of TikTok, because it's one of the few independent news sources that we have.
Yeah.
Is everything on TikTok factual? Fuck no.
No.
But there are enough live feeds there that nobody's narrating it.
And we're talking
amongst
ourselves.
You can see it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
What's happening, really happening, and then the fear of the loss of narrative, like we talked about, somebody tripped and the curtain fell down.
Yeah.
And now we can see all the inner workings.
And
it's fucking ugly.
Yeah.
And they don't care that you can see
now it. They don't care at all because they have so much control.
Yeah, and people for the first time ever are seeing what I've been... Well, you saw what I went through with my family.
Yeah.
Trying to convince them that where you spend your money matters. because those corporations take that money and they give it to politicians, who then give it to a legal service who crafts legislation, which is then fed back to Congress, and then which is passed against you to take away your rights. And it's actually a legal arm of our government that isn't part of our government, that is actually lobbying. Is it ALEC? Yeah, it's ALEC. Yeah. That's the legal arm that is writing all this nasty ass legislation against us. That's getting all these laws passed in like 25 states in the union. So that's half the fucking country that has now lost their rights. They've lost. And then if you saw some of the horrible legislation that was passed in North Carolina, which you and I were privy to, when a bunch of the ALEC carpetbaggers come in, and they were placed there by that lobby to run, not even from our state.
Well, they're trying in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, they're doing it here as well.
Don't even reside in the state, and they want to.
I never heard of this. What is it?
ALEC. So it's an it's a legal lobbyist group, and they craft a lot of legislation that they actually foist onto our Congress people because, well, they're paid by them. So they're getting their money from them. And these people are crafting some of the ugliest legislation. And they've been doing this for decades, and people aren't aware. But let me look here.
And there's so many of those special interest groups, too, that pollute everything, every aspect of law. And you wonder why people are depressed.
American Legislative Exchange Council.
And what sort of things are they trying to do?
Well, laws against women, laws against gays, all kinds of money, like Citizens United, where corporations are people too, which really cost us so that they could lobby further and they could own more Congress people and senators and stuff like that. The whole purpose behind that is so their vote would have more power based on their money. We have one vote. They have millions and millions and billions of dollars, so they have all those votes. So there's a lot of law crafted on the books by this organization, and this organization is paid by corporations like anything Georgia Pacific, the Koch brothers, and then Walmart Corporation, Hobby Lobby. Notice Hobby Lobby got sued like massively for stealing artifacts from Mesopotamia, Egypt, places like that, for their church museum. And they're still in business. And look at their financials and tell me how they're still in business.
Well, there's all these companies
Something
that
propped them up.
Their foundation is that. We just had a conversation. Somebody, I really like their chicken. Oh, but every dollar you spend at this certain chicken restaurant is a known fundamentalist organization that's trying to destroy you.
A very high percentage of all that money goes right back to ALEC.
Stop spending your fucking money there. And you're funding your own demise.
Our legislators aren't even writing the laws.
No.
They're being spoon-fed the laws by this legislative council.
Yeah.
And then they're taking them to the floor. And then they'll have all this legislation, like they'll do, let's say, a farm bill or a subsidy bill. And somewhere about 300 pages into a 500-page document, they'll bury some ugly piece of legislation.
Yeah.
And they know nobody's going to read it. You got 500, 2,000 pages, and you get these pages like the night before the vote on the floor. This is how insidious this is. They'll get it like the night before the votes to come up. These congressmen and these senators haven't read this shit. And then they'll pass it based on the farm bill. Yeah, I know. I'm getting on my soapbox. But yeah.
Well, just to add something, in the Red Church, I did put in some material about farming being sort of a sacred calling.
Yes.
And about the soil and traditionalism, and it's a shame what's happening to farming now. They're being pressed, and then there's Monsanto with all of its...
With its seed rights?
Yeah. That's really wicked, because you buy these seeds and you can't do anything. They die. You have to buy more.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really realize, too, what farmers are going through.
And how many farmers down south got sued.
Yeah.
because some portion of a pollinated crop blew into their field, and it was owned by one of the giants like Monsanto or Conagra. And then that started growing on their property, and it had genetics from them, and then it was growing in this farmer's crop, crossed with that farmer's crop, and they got sued for morbid and put out of business because that seed was growing in their field.
Yeah. It's really any local family farm right now, it's a struggle.
You can't
It
tell
really
that
is.
I've been an activist for my entire adult life and had to stop, right? And like had just
No,
had to.
I've not been
no, no, but it's like, holy crap, the insidious, ugly shit that's going on behind the curtain, and Oz doesn't even care anymore. I think I preferred it in the 1960s, 1970s, when you didn't know Oz was operating behind the curtain, that you thought everything was just.
I think they were better at the game.
Yeah, they were a whole lot better, but they weren't.
Yeah.
They don't even care to play the game now.
Well, now
That's
there's,
what's frightening.
the social media and communication is lightning fast.
Yeah.
So when they slip up, everyone knows.
Yeah.
And they have to come
And
up
then
with
they
a-
just bluster and beat their chest.
Yeah.
And distract. Hey, look at this over here.
Yeah.
Look what this asshole's
and then,
doing. Or,
pitting people against each other. And,
Well, there's too many people. There's a lot of people who are too busy treading water
Yes.
and
they don't have time to
they
care.
don't have time to pay
They don't.
attention. They don't even know half this is going on. And then if you tell them,
They think you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're a conspiracy theorist. Even though I can show you the money.
yeah.
I can fucking show you the money.
Well, that's purposeful.
Yeah.
They keep you so
Yeah.
broke and hungry. You can't afford groceries. You can't afford rent. You can't afford anything.
No.
And so you're not really paying attention to those things by design.
Yeah. And the reason
know.
being is you are spending your money with the wrong people.
Yeah.
You are spending your money with the corporation that is trying to squeeze every last bit of blood out of you.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how you paid for your own demise.
So
Politically speaking.
support local businesses.
Yeah.
Support authors
Yes.
who are trying to put out good works.
Yeah.
And
support local farms.
Yes, local
absolutely.
farms are amazing.
we have, the
We have
farms
some
right
great
here.
ones here.
They have farmers market. They have stores that you can go to and
Yeah.
buy direct from the farm.
Yeah.
Cut out the middle person, and you're supporting a farmer's family.
I think if we could get everybody to stop for a series of months on end from putting any money into any corporation, I don't care what the name is, any big retail giant store,
Yep.
any big retail giant gas station or food chain, whatever, and go back local,
Yep.
that we could drain their banks
Or
in a
you would
matter
at
of
least make
months.
them pay attention
Yeah.
for just a split second
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's what we need is decentralization, and
Absolutely.
I believe we had that for a long time until the federal government grew too big for its britches.
Yes.
Because the federal government originally only had a few functions, and the rest of it was up to the states.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then we did away with the fairness doctrine under Reagan. He got rid of that.
Yeah.
And so nobody has to tell the truth anymore. So nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Because they can tell you whatever they want to tell you now. And it used to be that you couldn't put that stuff on the news and you couldn't put that stuff in a commercial.
Yeah. It had to be vetted.
Yeah. If it was not true, you couldn't lie about your pocket
Oh,
fisherman.
yeah. You get in deep
Yeah,
trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we got to cut with this one's we're in an hour and 32 minutes.
You got about
I see the sky raising spider.
Yeah. Is it a spider or an inchworm?
It's a spider.
Okay.
But God, it was-
Arachne making herself known. So anyway, Red Church, and is the Sybil Leek book coming out this?
Actually, I'm going to be speaking with the editor this week to pound out the rest of it
Excellent.
and
That's
get
awesome.
it out of the bottleneck.
A Tale of Two Witches is what they're calling it.
Yes.
Love
Tale,
it.
Tale of Two Witches by Christine Jones.
That's
And I'm-
awesome.
And I'm just the editor. So-
Are you going to the Hermetic Society annual
Gathering?
talk?
I might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what
June 1st.
Yeah, June
Yeah.
1st. So if you look up the
Yeah.
Institute for Hermetic
June 1st and
Studies,
2nd.
Mark Stavish, it's their annual, I don't know what you call it, a meeting or presentations. They have presentations from people
Yeah.
all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
And so you can check our website for links to that, or check out the Institute of Hermetic Studies. It's very worthwhile going.
Yeah.
Great group of people that are doing good stuff.
Yeah, they are. They're
So,
amazing.
But if you've made it this far, thank you, Chris, for coming in.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I
Great
appreciate
conversation.
it.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of In the Weeds, and we hope you didn't have to pick too much pucker brush off your cloak after visiting with us here. If you liked the episode, please follow, subscribe, and share. And if you're really kind, leave a positive review. Be sure to tune in next week as we publish a new episode weekly. If you're in the area, stop by the store and see us. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.